Welcome to our webinar for how to write a book that actually sells. So I am Erin. I have been a writer for as long as I've been literate, which is pretty much my whole life, but I used to write a relationship advice column for the Los Angeles and the Chicago Examiner, which trended #1 all the time. I co-wrote a musical, which toured for 18 months. I've ghostwritten over 20 books for StoryTerrace and for private clients. So I've done a lot. I've read a lot. I come from the acting world. I'm a retired actress. And so I've read hundreds of screenplays, and I've even written one that was nominated in a film festival. So I have been in the industry for a long, long time, and so has my friend Hudson. So Hudson, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Hi, Erin. Hi, everybody. My name is Hudson Perigo. I'm a writer and a developmental editor. I've been in the business since 1980. Actually, a developmental editor is the editor who looks at your ideas and your pages from a 30,000-foot view and brings you an experienced idea, an experienced viewpoint. And I think that's important because we all want to show our books and our ideas and our pages to friends, but sometimes it helps to get a professional.
Hmm.
If you are thinking about using a developmental editor, they're obviously come in all flavors and all sizes, but you want to hear from that person, you know, that was really pretty good. What if we just kind of add on a little bit more, go a little bit deeper? Those are the kinds of suggestions you're looking for regarding structure, voice, clarity, that kind of thing.
And Hudson, you started as a writer and now you're a developmental editor. And in my experience, those are very different and distinct skills. There, of course, is some crossover, but can you like expand on what exactly a developmental editor does that's different than what a writer does, other than just really having an eye for structure?
Every good writer is a good developmental editor because you've heard the saying before, writing is rewriting, and that's true. Well, a developmental editor has been rewriting and rewriting and rewriting for some time. I am like you, a writer to the core, so I still write every day. Um, what's different is that I've had, I keep going back to that word experience. Uh, I've had an opportunity to see what books have sold. I
Mm,
understand that I understand what it means to be authentic in your writing. I can see it when it is inauthentic.
right.
I know that a book needs to catch the zeitgeist. It has to be very focused and specific about the audience instead of wandering. So it is a more mechanical task, there's no doubt about it, but
Yeah.
it's writing all the same.
But to your point, there is a lot that goes into creating a book that sells. And it's so much more than just the writing. It is about being authentic. It's about using a diversity of language and, not having all long or short sentences. It's about having the page look pretty, having the appropriate white space on the page. I mean, there are just so many things that you can't even keep track of when you're writing. So we're going to kind of focus on a lot of the parts, the moving parts, and something to also keep in mind is that the publishing industry is in a constant state of upheaval. It changes. So the information that we're giving you now could be vastly different in 6 months to a year from now. So you really
Oh,
have to kind of keep up.
definitely, you have to keep up. You have to know the market. You have to do a title search on your book. You have to see what's out there and who you're competing with. And you have
Mhm.
to be just a little bit different. And the best way to be just a little bit different is to be very, very passionate. So you want
Mhm.
to pick a topic that not only are you an expert about, but you love it. You just love exploring it. And if it's about your life, then you figured life out for a little bit of part of it, maybe, and you want to share that with everyone. Or sometimes, particularly with memoir, you want to leave a legacy. Uh, something that your children and your children's children can look back upon and understand your time just a little bit better to help them understand their time. So there are all kinds of reasons. There are also people who need a book for professional reasons. They want to promote a career or a business. So it just, that's what's so fun about it. It's always different.
Absolutely. Well, if we could go on to the next slide, we can kind of look in them. So 55% of people, I would say, is a very conservative estimate. I would think it's closer to 95, but I won't argue the stats. So 55% of people want to write a book and less than 2% get it done. I also know that only 6% of people that start writing a book actually finish writing it. It is hard. It's hard to write a book. It's hard to know where to get started. It's hard to understand all the formatting and all of the rules and all of the conventions. So it's just always a good idea whether you hire a team like StoryTerrace or you've got, friends that you can pass pages to and get feedback from. Writing in particular is an art form where it's highly collaborative and you wouldn't ever just want to write something, in a vacuum in your room by yourself and then just like put it out into the world and turn it in and assume that it's great and glorious because it's always going to need several rounds of editing. So at Story Terrace, we've worked on over 3,500 books, helping to write, edit, and self-publish. So if you need any help at any step along the way, then we are here for you. But moving on to our next slide. Okay, so we're not going to spend a lot of time here, but if you do want to come in for a ghostwriting package, then this kind of walks you through of everything to expect. You're going to get a team that's going to be with you from the beginning to the end. You're going to start, you're going to come in and you're just going to give your interviews and talk about everything you want to go into the book. And by the end, you're going to have a hardback copy in your hand that is going to have gone through proofreading and design proofing and all kinds of stages. So anyone that wants more information about this, feel free to get in contact with me. But here is really the heart of the webinar. What we're really talking about is the thing that will sell any book is going to be the hook, the book, and the cook. That is the formula. So you are all the cooks. You're the ones making the product, right? It's your intellectual property. And then the book is the thing that you want to write about. That is the topic. And if it's your life story, then it's going to be, your life story. But the hook, that's the tricky part. It's the thing that's going to hook the readers in. So whether that is like a one sentence, just th something that encapsulates your book entirely. So whether that's nonfiction, fiction, or whatever, you're going to want one or two sentences that just kind of explain the sort of high concept thing that you're creating. And if you are writing memoir, then what you really want to keep in mind is that it is a very crowded market. Everyone wants to tell their life story and everyone can. And so how do you make your life story stand out in that crowded market? And we really want to focus some attention there. And that would be what's called memoir plus. And so the plus is that je ne sais quoi. It's that something extra that you are going to bring. And so that can be an educational component, a criticism, reportage, history, research, social commentary. So don't panic if you are thinking, well, I don't have, a PhD or an MBA or any other fun little letters after your name. Neither do I. Okay. And so that's not the most important thing. So what we really want to focus on is what do you know that nobody else knows? What do you have that nobody else has? And so we're really going to dive in and figure out how to talk about what your plus is. And Hudson, did you want to add anything to this slide before we kind of get into talking about some examples?
I think this is pretty good slide, pretty specific.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Perfect. Well, I'll let you take over talking about Shaggy's Cheeseburger since you actually worked on this book, and you can kind of clue people in about the plus that took this right to bestseller status.
I did work on this book. This was such a fun book. And it started off, the owner of he kept calling it a fish shack, but it's a family owned business. There are several different locations along the Mississippi Gulf Coast and also going into Florida. Their community was completely destroyed by Katrina and everything was just blown away. And one of the little pluses that he added was a really interesting uh, page about how and why hurricanes are much more destructive in Mississippi than they are in other parts of the world. And I found that to be fascinating. Also, he developed as he began talking about why he built the business and the care of the community, the involvement of the community, his involvement with his employees. It turned very naturally into a leadership book. And I learned things, and we put in the book things that were just so fascinating. He, in fact, gives home loans to his employees, or at least for the down payment of the loan. That's something you don't get with every employer. And it's how he builds the family and the team and the camaraderie. So that was a huge plus book. The other fun thing about his book, I'll just say briefly, is that it was not originally called Shaggy's Cheeseburgers because, of course, they specialize in fish and all kinds of seafoods and everything. But he really came to the conclusion at the end that so much of his story and his life and his enjoyment of life came from eating cheeseburgers. And cheeseburgers actually are the number one seller at the fish market, which I thought was hysterical. So that it suddenly became Shaggy's Cheeseburgers. So always be open and flexible. Writing is fun, it's a discovery, it's excitement, and you're going to be evolving your book also in this journey.
Exactly. What a great point is that up until like you hit publish, you really are going to be changing things, tweaking things, just constantly reacting to feedback and the market and things like that. So that's a really great point to bring up is just that he thought that he had the book and then everything kind of got restructured at the last minute. And then it seems to have been the sort of secret sauce that
It
really
was.
got this. Yeah.
It was, and it's because he enjoyed it. He just got into it so much. Don't be afraid of it. You're not writing a high school essay. Nobody, you don't have to work. Be yourself. Be authentic.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, let's go to the next book. This one is called White Coat, Blue Gown. And this one is written by a doctor mostly who got cancer and became a cancer patient. So it's sort of going and exploring being on both sides of that curtain, whether you're the person being treated or the person doing the treatment. And so the storyteller sadly passed away, and so her sister, who was also a doctor, stepped in to finish the book. So this one was really special, really unique, and I think that the title and the cover of the book are excellent, excellent advertising and marketing copy. I mean, that's your first opportunity to market. It's going to be who amongst us does not judge a book by its cover? Literally, we all do, and we're supposed to. And so I think this one did a great job. It's very clear what the structure of it is. It's a doctor who gets sick. And so that's also really smart, is when you're doing you have to clue in the audience pretty quickly right away to what it is, which is very, very tricky to do. And again, another good reason to bring in a team. But this one's pretty self-explanatory. So we'll go on to the next one, which is La Limone. And I still remember selling this book to Joanna Palmer. She really she'd been through a lot. Life had given her lemons and she was making lemonade, and she also has some lemon trees on her property. And so after, some several conversations, we figured out her book was going to center around lemons, and we were going to do this companion cookbook piece with all lemon recipes. And it was just such a fun way to set it up. And so you don't have to have any kind of expert knowledge. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think Joanna knows more about lemons than anyone else listening to this necessarily, but she did use her love and passion for lemons and lemon recipes to her advantage. And I think, Hudson, you've made some pretty great points about the other, new releases, the comparable titles. So what do you want us to know about those?
I think this is a case where the author really paid attention to her competitors because there are umpteen million books about lemons. Let me tell you, there really are. And this one not only had the recipes and the idea about the resiliency of when life gives you lemons, which they all do, But she also talked about the lemon tree as a metaphor for aging and evolving. And I did not know that the lemon is actually sweeter the older the tree. And that caught me right away. That I thought she had a nice little bent on it. So, one other quick point. I think that cover is absolutely gorgeous. Never
Mhm.
underestimate the importance of a professional designer. That is such a super skill that very rarely does a writer have both. So I think that one catches your attention immediately. And I think the title is kind of tricky too. So all of it makes you want to pick that book up.
Oh, yeah, I absolutely agree. Never underestimate the power of white space. It's just so beautiful and it's not very busy and fussy, but it's like it communicates so much with so little. I love that cover.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on to the next slide. All right, so again, because so many people want to talk about writing a book that sells, the selling component has been a big point of interest. So we definitely want to spend some time talking about that. We're going to mention the sort of two paths to publishing, which are valid and distinct. So you've got your self-publishing path, and then you've also got your traditional publishing path. And that can be with a big five or an independent publisher. We're not really going to talk about hybrid publishing at all because that is just repackaged vanity publishing, and it's a little bit scammy. Don't I wouldn't look into hybrid or vanity publishing if I were you. So we don't really, there's not much to talk about on this slide. So let's just kind of jump right into the next one. So we'll go right into TradPub. So traditional publishing, it is a long and slow process. So if you've got traditional publishing goals, just be aware that it's going to be very, very slow. So no matter what kind of book you want to get published, you're going to have to get a literary agent. Most of the time, there are a few small presses you can go directly to, but you would query literary agents and then hope that they would be interested in your manuscript and want to represent you. And then they would, query acquisition editors who are acquiring in your genre. And so it just takes a long time because all of these people are essentially working for free, right? An agent doesn't get paid their 15% commission until they sell something for you. So they're not going to want to read something that isn't already publishable. Like when you're turning in work to a literary agent or in any place during the traditional publishing process, you basically have to have a completely polished manuscript, which is again a place where like a developmental editor or, some other, at least a proofreader is going to come in clutch because you're really going to want to make sure that you are turning in your very best work. And you are essentially selling the rights to your intellectual property. So you will get, usually it's about like $1.50 a book sale until you pay back your advance. So on average, you're earning about 10 to 15%. So you're kind of giving away 85 to 90% of your book for the marketing and advertising and all of the sort of big push that a traditional publisher can put behind your book. And I know that you have a lot of experience with trad publishers, Hudson. So is there anything that you want to add to that?
I think it's important to remember that you and a traditional publisher are really entering into a partnership, and you are the product that the traditional publisher is marketing, selling. They have the sales force, they have the marketing team, uh, but they also have control over your manuscript. And the rationale is real. They know their market, they know what their salespeople will sell, and so each house has its own style, its own house style. And so the first barrier is that you've got to fit into that style. Do your research, go to books that publish books that are like the ones you like, and you'll have a much better chance there.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so let's go on to the next slide. All right, so if you do want to publish nonfiction, you will need a book proposal. Okay, and so that is it's a long document. It sort of gives a high level outline. You've got to know your target audience and your themes. So even though you don't have to have the full manuscript written yet, you have to essentially be prepared to write the full manuscript because you have to know what every chapter is about. So I would recommend still writing the book first, but in order to send a book proposal, now, Hudson, you've had almost like 40 something outrageous nonfiction books sell on proposal. So I feel like you are the best authority on this topic. What should we know?
A good book proposal is it's a sales tool, it's a plan, it's a book map. It just shows the publisher or that you are the literary agent, that you've really thought it through, that you've explored the competition, you see something a little different in your slant on it. You present a short bio of yourself, your credentials. Uh, go back to Aristotle, ethos, lothos, pathos. Uh, Here's who I am. This is why I'm qualified to write this book. This is what my book is about. Here's my audience. I'm going right to them. And of course, you want to start with a really terrific anecdote or opening story to catch their attention, because all of publishing, well, actually the whole world right now is an attention economy. It's all about grabbing and holding attention. So think of your book proposal as a little tiny miniature uh, webinar of yourself and your book.
And you just kind of brought up like a first page, a first sentence. The first line is probably the
The
most
most.
important in your whole book.
You should spend more time writing the first page than anything else. Period.
Exactly. Exactly. And the first line in particular, but the first page, on page one, I should know who is the protagonist. Like, who is this story about? And if it's your life story, then you are the main character, right? I need to know who's telling the story. I need to know what they want, at least a short-term goal, and some hint at what is standing in their way. That is an incredible amount to put on a first page, especially if you're doing world building and all kinds of stuff. So I would say if you really want to write a killer first page, you need to go read as many books as possible. But I mean, read them to completion, but certainly read page one. See how other people are doing it. See what their first line is. See what their first page is. And how are they grabbing readers in? Because everybody thinks that their life story is so interesting, but we've all gone through these trials and tribulations and these roller coasters and these good times and these bad. So, what particular way are you structuring it? Is there an educational component? What is the sort of angle that is going to draw in your readers? And I think that is something really important to keep in mind. But I think,
That's why that's why everybody needs an editor, right there.
oh, oh,
Page one.
100%. Yes, yes, I am obsessed with editors, absolutely. But just so you know, if you are trying to sell your nonfiction work on proposal, you don't necessarily have to have a bunch of social media followers. That was very popular for the last couple of years, but that popularity is waning because publishers and industry professionals have figured out that having millions of social media followers does not equate into book sales. In fact, nobody knows how to sell books. That's why this is like it's a tricky conversation. So we're just giving you all of our industry knowledge so that you can put your best foot forward. All right, let's move on to the next slide. Self-publishing. So essentially, there are many platforms where you can publish your book and maintain your copyright, the royalties, the most popular being Amazon. Something like 90% of books are purchased on Amazon. So if you're only going to be selling in one place, that's a great place to be. Although Ingram Sparks is also good because they can actually get your book into bookstores if that's your goal. So it's really good to know what your goal is. Is your goal to sell 5 copies? Is your goal just to like see your name printed on a book? Is your goal to see your book in a bookstore? You know, it's you really have to get clear about these things. But with self-publishing, although you maintain full ownership, so rather than getting about 10 to 15% of the goods, you're going to end up getting about 65. Amazon is going to take 35 to 40% of, your book sales in order to host you on their site, but that is still substantially more than you would get from a trad publisher. The problem being here is that you're responsible for your own marketing and distribution, so everything falls onto you, but the good news is that everything falls onto you. So you get to control the font that you use to write the book, the cover art that you use, the title. So there's a lot more creative control. It's just that there were 4 million books self-published in 2025, 2 million in 2024, 2 million in 2023. So you can see like a huge upward trend recently. So you have to really be able to stand out in a very crowded market. And to do that, you want to utilize every tool that you have, in your toolbox. And so hopefully some of that is going to be reaching out and hiring a team because you're going to want other people to have eyes on your manuscript. And maybe you want help just writing it in the first place. So you don't have to kind of go in and do like a big overhaul of structure and things like that. And then that's when our ghostwriters come in and we always match every storyteller's authentic voice. So, if you want it written in one way with one particular tone, don't worry, we can do that for you. But so let's kind of move on. So we've talked a little bit about both paths to publishing. All right, so maximizing your book's potential. We've talked a little bit about how title and subtitle and like the cover are so super important. But Hudson, why don't you talk to us about like some of like the testimonials and some of these other things that are vital?
There's been a great deal of research done about testimonials. And in fact, they're actually, you've seen books where you have pages and pages at the front of the book. They're sometimes called praise pages. That's because there are umpteen million books out there. And so people like to make their choices based upon the success rate. They know that someone else has read the book and really loved it. Someone else like them liked it. It doesn't have to be a celebrity. That doesn't hurt. It really helps a lot. If you are related in any way to any public figure, you want to get that name on the cover of your book, perhaps. But also important is if you're writing a book about, let's say you're a parent writing a book about your reactions to your child's medical condition, it really does help if you get a testimonial or endorsement from a professional, from an expert in that field. And it doesn't have to be anybody, a well-known person, just the organization and the affiliation helps. uh, anything like that does help, again, attract attention. But you're still going to be turning to that first page, and the first page has to pull the reader in, or he'll just put the book down and find another one.
Yep, absolutely. And so some of this author marketing, people have been doing podcasts or, TikToks or whatever different social media kind of accounts of them talking about their book. You also want to be careful to not give everything away. You want to build your audience, but you want to leave them with a reason to buy the book. You don't want to give away everything. So it is this very careful dance where you want to build an audience and give them enough to draw them in, but you also don't want to give them too much because then they've kind of already gotten the goods for free and you want them to buy your book. So, it's a dance.
And that shows up, I think, especially in the memoir with Memoir Plus. Uh, you're looking for the other readers outside of your family and friends are looking
Mm.
for something other than just, I was born in Newburgh, Indiana, and went to high school there, and blah blah blah.
Right, exactly. And I think people get confused. That is actually an autobiography when it is very fact and data driven. A memoir has a narrative where it goes in and tells a story. So let's just start right there. The difference between autobiography and memoir, they are different. And if you're writing fiction or if you're writing nonfiction, non-narrative, like some sort of educational book, etc., like everything's going to be different. Everything's going to have its own with what kind of book am I writing? What are the current market trends? And then try to cater to them. So
Right.
I think we can go on to the next slide. Kind of covered this one. All right. So most important thing I think is be realistic. The average book is going to sell under 500 copies. So if your goal is to become a huge juggernaut bestseller and to be able to quit your day job and support yourself as a writer, my goal too. Like I hope it happens for all of us. But it's pretty rare. I think I can think of like 3 people off the top of my head that have ever done that. So I don't know. What do you think, Hudson?
I can think of more than three.
Yeah, more than three. Yeah. But you got like your Stephen Kings. It's pretty rare. So, what should people really know about being realistic and knowing their audience and doing their homework?
You have to know yourself. You have to know why you're doing it. You have to not be afraid to look deep, right to the bones. Don't be afraid to put down what you really feel and what has hurt you and what has made you stronger. If you find it's a little too sensitive later, that's why you rewrite. And that's one of the advantages of self-publishing, is that then you have the big red pencil. It's a growing, evolving journey. So be yourself. That's it. Don't be afraid.
Absolutely. I mean, there's something like seven plots ever told. There's
Oh
only,
yeah, seven
yeah,
fairy tales.
yep, seven plots ever told, and we're all reinventing the wheel. There's no such thing as a unique thought. You think that you're having some like thing that nobody's ever thought of before, and I can guarantee you that that book already exists, but not your take on it, your version, your unique subjective experience of that book. Who's telling the story? That's why fairy tale reimaginings are so popular, because it's like, yeah, we want to see that story again, but now we want to see it through the wicked stepsister's eyes instead of Cinderella or whatever the case might be. So just know like that there's going to be books out there that are similar to yours, and that's not a bad thing. That's a
No,
good thing. That means there's a market for your book.
yeah. When I was doing acquisitions, if somebody came to me and said, "Oh no, there's no book anywhere about this," I'm thinking, okay, my salesman will not be able to sell it. There is no market out there, perhaps.
Exactly.
So
People always, they think that's a selling point, and it's actually a sticking point.
exactly, right, right.
All right, Bhumika, we can go on to the next slide, I think. All right, so just briefly at StoryTerrace, if you do need any help with self-publishing, we have two different packages. We have our Amazon Essentials, where we will put your book up onto Amazon for you, get you connected to your ebook and your paperback. You'll get to talk to a publishing professional, so you'll understand how to read your sales dashboard, how to price your book. We'll get you into a few relevant market keyword search categories. And then for what I call our platinum package, it's global distribution. Your book would go everywhere books go. You'd get 3 months of targeted marketing and advertising support on Amazon. You'd also get a custom cover design for your book. We would create, like a LinkedIn banner to kind of create some buzz of coming soon for your book release and things like that. So depending on what level of support you would like, we definitely have packages for that. So if you want any more information, feel free to, get in touch with me anytime. All right, let's see what we have next. So now we're getting into the Q&A. So people sent in their questions, so we'll just go through the list. All right, so how do I start compiling my stories for a book? Where do I even begin? I mean, great question. I have about 6 notebooks and a notes app on my phone and just things written down everywhere that I really need to streamline into one place. But it's like where, how, what works for you? Are you a digital person? Do you want to just have a little app on your notes, on your phone? Do you like pen and paper? Do you want to create like a notebook where you keep everything together? Do you have any sort of like habit for this, Hudson? Like, what do you do to keep it all in one place?
I don't. I have it all over the all
Yeah.
over. I have various places in my home where this is where the first idea happens. Then I come over here and refine it over there. So I sort of have a physicality to how I keep my notes. There are lots of books on how to do this actually, and particularly in memoir. If you pick up anything by Natalie Goldberg, Writing Down the Bones, Old Friend from Far Away, they can give you writing exercises essentially that help you get started. So maybe you're drinking a cup of tea and it brings up a memory about your grandmother and you start thinking about that, and you so there are techniques that you can sort of train yourself, because writing is rewriting and it's practice. So lots of things like that. One little trick I learned at SC, had a professor who said, never leave a scene at the end, always leave it in the middle, so that
Mm-hmm.
when you come back to it, you're starting up again and you make yourself then finish the scene. It gets those creative juices going. And we all have different tricks, some it's as individual as each of us.
And I would
But
say
the,
the most thing is to just make a note for yourself anywhere because the memory is unreliable.
yeah, just do it. Just do it.
Yeah, you're like, oh, I'm going to remember this huge monumental moment to put into my book later. You'll forget. You'll forget. You're like, oh my God, I forgot to thank my husband for my Oscar. You will forget. All right, so just write it down, like where do you even begin? Like wherever you begin is the beginning. Like it's just nobody really knows, right? Like there is no right way or wrong way. There's just your way. All right, so how do I keep myself motivated to keep writing? When you find out, please let me know. I don't know what motivation for writing is. I only know what discipline is, and I force myself to sit down and do it even when I don't want to, which is like 12 times out of 10.
Yeah, agreed. All the same answers to question one.
Yeah, exactly. Like, yeah, so you gotta just do it. You gotta make yourself do it. And you know what? If you have no time to sit down and start writing something, great, because our ghostwriting packages are perfect for people that don't have that kind of time on their hands. And you just want to talk and you want to tell your story and you don't want to feel motivated to do all of the boring kind of structuring and sentence elevation and line level rewrites and stuff. Let us take it off your plate. You can just have your incredible story and we'll do all that kind of hard work for you. But motivation, it's just, set a timer and give yourself a cookie every time you write for 5 minutes. Like I eat a lot of cookies. There's a lot. Writing is eating cookies, really. All right. So if you keep getting stuck perfecting structure before finishing a draft, what should you prioritize first to complete a commercially strong book? Well, if you keep getting stuck perfecting structure, that kind of tells me that something's not working because you shouldn't have to keep perfecting the foundation over and over and over. So it feels like maybe you have reached the limit of what you're able to do on your own. And that's the perfect time to get other people involved, to hire an editor, to get other like beta readers to take a look at the draft. Because what is not working, like books should have some sort of satisfying structure where you're going to have character arcs and act arcs and just place things that need to be hit midpoint twist. There's got to be pinch points. There's got to be an inciting incident. There's got to be a denouement where after you kind of reach the big climax of the book can't end there. You've got to actually sort of introduce the new ordinary world and what does that look like. So there are a lot of formulas on structure. And if you're like, ugh, I don't like things that are formulaic, well, neither do I, but you want to have a lot of freedom within that structure because like, if you think about things that don't have structure, you've got French films. Ugh, I don't,
I was just going to say the same thing. And I'm
French
French, so I
cinema.
can say that.
Yeah, me too. Exactly. We're talking about our own people. It's fine. But so
Exactly.
what do you
Exactly. Hate French films. Hate them.
They're so bad. They're so absurdist. Anyway, we're off topic. So what do you think about what's the priority number one to create a commercially strong book? What do you think, Hudson?
God, I'm going to just harp on the same old thing. If you love it and you believe it and you've learned it, that's step one. There is the zeitgeist. You have to be in the audience has to be ready to receive your book also. I mean, that's a part of it too. Timing is important, I'll admit, but 9 times out of 10, if you really believe in what you want to tell people, you've got a book.
Yeah, absolutely. So I would say don't get stuck. Probably right. And if you can't fix it yourself, get other people involved. All right. I have many stories. How do I decide which to include or exclude? I think that would go back to sort of understanding your plus. What is the way that you are structuring the book? Are you telling everything through the guise of, Stories involving lemons? Are you revolving around, stories about managing a team? So I think once you kind of figure out what your plus is, what your angle is, what your secret sauce is, that's going to really inform you about the stories that become important or unimportant. What do you think, Hudson? Anything to add?
Well, one quick thing. It's called the through line. Just make a list of what you want to include. And if your story doesn't relate to that directly in some way, if you can't relate it to that, toss it.
Exactly. It can be the best story ever about how Prince hit on you at a club and like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know. That's just the most exciting thing I could think of. Sorry, is the artist formerly known as Prince. But if I'm writing a book about how to make a like sardine sandwich, what does that have to do with it? So I can't include that story. Sardine sand. I don't know what's wrong with my brain today. We're just going to move on. All right. So, how long is the ghost writing process? Well, our packages take about 5 to 7 months to complete, and that's from you, going in with interview one with your writer and getting a fully polished hardcover copy of your book in your hand. Um, about 5 to 6 months on average. We give people 9 months in our ghostwriting packages just because some people take a little bit longer, or they go on vacation, or life happens. But how long does it take to publish a book? Huh. Well, if you're self-publishing, it takes as long as it does for you to write the book and to get it edited and polished and proofread and, go through all the kind of steps of creating the cover art and the formatting and the typesetting. I would say 6 months to a year. If you are doing traditional publishing, then that's going to be like 2 years to the rest of your life. Like traditional publishing is very, very, very slow because they already have slated all the books that are coming out. And so even if you were to like submit your query letter to a literary agent right now and they wanted to sign you and your book didn't need any edits, this is like pie in the sky for real. And then they just sent your book out to acquisition editors. Those editors are busy working on books that they have already purchased, that the publishing house has already paid for. And so there's going to be a stack, a huge pile of things. It's a virtual stack. People aren't using like paper copies anymore, but for the visual, there's just like a huge stack of hundreds and hundreds of pages that these editors have to get to. And it can take 6 months to a year for them to even take a peek at your pages. So really depends. What's your experience, Ben Hudson?
Exactly the same. A lot of people don't realize that publishers have seasons. And
Mm.
as you said, they've already blocked a couple of seasons ahead. So unless we just started a war somewhere and you wrote a book about that, you're not going to be put ahead of the line.
Right. And there are those occasions where you can get bumped up to the head of the line, but it would be rare and impossible to really predict, like war. Okay, so how do I go from manuscript to distribution on Amazon and other retailers? Okay, well, so if you already have your manuscript, I would definitely highly recommend you get some sort of edit before publishing to Amazon. But if you want to put it on Amazon, then you just have to format it and put it right up there. I don't believe that they don't charge for the ISBN for the ebook. You can purchase ISBNs pretty cheaply as well, but I believe Amazon supplies them. So it really is just a matter of formatting, which people find very frustrating, which is why we have our Amazon Essentials package with StoryTerrace, because we can kind of like take that frustration off of your plate. And if you want to put it, other places, you just have to follow the formatting instructions on each like site, like Ingram Sparks or Apple Books or barnesandnoble.com, all those places. So it's just a matter of reading the formatting rules and following them. And if you have trouble doing that, then we have packages for that. We can definitely help you. All right. So are meetings with an editor personal or virtual? Virtual. Editing, it's a pretty solo gig, right, Hudson? Like you've never had an audience while you were.
No, not intended.
Mhm. Yeah, so it's just to work with an editor, it's typically virtual because most communication is going to be done via, email, just kind of written correspondence. Um, so like we offer in-person interviews at StoryTerrace. I suppose if you really wanted an in-person editor, we could facilitate it, but it would be quite rare. Can I have a personal consultant? I'm not 100% sure what that is, but if you mean someone that's kind of like you can run ideas past and like see if you're on the right track and get them to kind of like read pages and things like that, that I would love to have that person as well, like a little concierge, a little book butler. But I will say we've got all kinds of packages at StoryTerrace. Like if you need any sort of like author support, if you're writing and you want feedback on your chapters, we can have developmental editors look at them. If you wanted to book in a strategy session with like Hudson, for example, and kind of like get pick her brain about your personal project, and you can do that too. So it's like depending on what you mean by personal consultant, like if there's just questions that you need answered at any step along your process, reach out. We definitely have a publishing expert who can answer them. How do I get picked up by an agent? I have been trying for the last 10 years, so it's so hard. You're competing in a very crowded space once again, and agents, unless they have some mission, they're working for free. So they have to like really believe in you. They have to really love your manuscript. They have to really want to champion it. So I would say this is very, very tricky. I have never had a literary agent, but I believe you have, Hudson, right?
Yeah, I did. And I kind of put as you were saying that, uh, sometimes ignorance is bliss. I actually got an agent I got a book about what are the big agencies. And I wrote a letter. I kept it short, just one page, a query letter, it's called. I learned later. And I said, hi, you don't know me, but I have an idea for a book. In fact, I have 10 ideas, and these are the things I think would make a good book. And you know what? They called me back and said, well, we like number 3. Can you give us a proposal on that? And that's when I learned how to write a proposal. So
Yeah. And see, that
it's
doesn't really happen anymore. People would frown against that now. But the thing is that if you do something professional, you can kind of get away with it. Like there are things that people don't know that you can do. Like when you query literary agents, you're supposed to let them know if somebody offers you representation. So you can say, representation, offer of representation received, you've got 2 weeks to make your offer. But you can also check back in with them and say, I've had 3 requests for, the full manuscript. Like they're going to want to, oh, other people want to read this full manuscript. Maybe I'll move you up to the top of the line. So it is kind of ignorance is bliss because when you know all the rules, you tend to just be a stickler for following them. And if you just don't know, you can just, oh, I didn't know I couldn't do that illegal U-turn. Oopsie, I'm going this way now. Too bad. So I agree with you. I think that you want to be respectful and mindful of people's time, but shoot your shot. The worst thing that's going to happen is, well, they're not going to say no. They're just never going to respond. That's the new no is ghosting. So how do you get picked up by an agent? You just keep trying. You write a really good query letter or book proposal, and you find the agents that are, interested in signing new talent. You can find those on Readsy. You can find them on querytracker.net, which is what most professional industry professionals use. All free resources. You can use manuscriptwishlist.com. It's very easy to find an agent that you can submit to. It's harder to get them to sign you. All right. I'm afraid of getting sued telling my life story. Should I go anonymous? Well, Hudson and I are not lawyers, although I have played one on TV. But I would say people can sue you for any reason, anytime, whether you write under a pen name, whether you change every name in your book. I mean, welcome to America. How can we sue you? Do you have anything to add, Hudson?
I think the rule of thumb is if you are afraid that your cousin is going to be upset and take you to court, don't put it in your book. That's just
Exactly.
my simple advice. The one thing I will say that I think I do find a lot of people who are entering into book writing for the first time have have the misconception that they can quote lyrics from a song, and very
Right.
often,
Oh,
and they will say, start off the whole first half of the first page will be the repeat of the lyrics of, Stairway to Heaven. I don't, does that have lyrics? Anyway, you know what I'm saying. And that is I will definitely caution you against that. You may use the song title, you may tell your experiences about how it moved your life. I mean, like Bat Out of Hell drove your entire teenage years, whatever, but do not quote the lyrics without permission from the
And you will not get permission because it's
you will
like
not get permission.
no,
Or,
like
or you'll pay, it'll cost millions.
it'll cost you so much money. Yeah, song lyrics are copyrighted material. You cannot just quote them all willy-nilly. And of course, Stairway to Heaven has lyrics. I actually was telling somebody about my obsession with Robert Plant, and he said, "Well, that would explain your hair." So I took that as a compliment. All right, our last question here. How much does it all cost? Great question. So we've got ghostwriting packages that start at $540 a month for 5 months, because like I said, it'll take that long to finish your book. Happy to let you pay over that length of time. Editing will go by the word count. So if you need a quote for editorial services, whether that's like a proofread, a copy edit, a structural edit, a developmental edit, just give me your word count and I can get that to you. And then as far as the publishing packages go, the Amazon Essentials package is 1,200 and the global distribution package with 3 months of marketing and advertising support is 5,500. And you can stretch those over a couple of months too if you need to. We're really happy to work with anyone with their budget, find a way to, get you into the package that's going to help you complete your book because that's our goal. We love books and stories and people. So feel free to, reach out to me. Bhumika, do you want to bring up the next slide? So if you have any other questions, if you want to get started, you can definitely, oh, this is the next slide. Well, also, by the way, before we get to my contact information for, viewing this webinar, you can get 250 pounds or $300 off of your package, good through Thursday. I think we might extend that a little bit since we're just getting this recording out. But anyway, just reach out to me and I'm happy to work with you on getting you the discount. But so here my US and UK phone numbers, my your question, feel free to just, shoot me a quick email or give me a call and let me know and we can talk about your project and how we can help you to finish it. So any parting words that you wanted to leave people with, Hudson?
You're watching this because you want to write a book. You have something inside of you that has to come out. Just do it. Just do it. And Aaron, I am so happy to learn that we are French cousins. I had no idea.
Je parle un peu le français.
Oh, that's I'm born in Indiana. I don't know how to speak French.
I'm born in Kansas, so there we are. We're Midwestern French queens. Well, anyway, that's our advice. Write the book, build your team, and if you want StoryTerrace to be a part of your team, we would love to be. So reach out anytime and happy writing.
Be writing.